Hello, happy campers, once again.
Chris.
Boy, a new show just throws you off, doesn't it? I'm Spike, that is Chris. This is not Geeking Out, this is our first ever spin-off show. This is the Back Rack Video.
Yes.
Something Chris has had in the back of his mind for a while, and it's been lonely back there. But this, we've been holding off till episode 200 to do this as part of the 200th Geeking Out celebration. So, as it happens, the 200th episode would wind up landing on Labor Day weekend. And as it turns out, Labor Day weekend 2022, your top two films, number 2 was released on Memorial Day and is still in theaters. And the number 1 movie was released 8 months ago and still kicked the butts of every single new release out in theaters, which means a lot of the new stuff sucks. So what we're doing is we've decided that back in the day when you went into a store that had videos like VHS tapes, DVDs, Blu-rays, Blockbuster Video, you saw that in the intro, Hollywood Video, Movie Gallery, Family Video, still a going concern, last I heard. But you would go in there and you'd see all the new releases lined up, neat little rows right there in the front, and you'd have to walk by like 1,000 copies of X-Men 14 and stuff, and you just see all of this stuff and all the new shiny sexy stuff at the beginning. The further you went back, you would walk into stuff that had been around for a couple of months. By the time you got to the back of the store and where the racks back there, the back racks would always have the videos with the really old stuff and the really good stuff and the really crap stuff that nobody wanted to touch. So
Yes.
it was in the back, you'd find It's a Wonderful Life, and you would find It's a Horrible Life. So it's one of those things. Take some, give some. Back Rack Video is designed to give you ideas of older stuff that's worth checking out when all the new stuff sucks. Okay, so the idea is to inspire you to go out, and I'm not going to tell you where to find any of these things, mainly because
They're hard. A lot of them are hard to find.
honestly, they can be. A lot of the things that are on streaming services will be there one week and then they'll be gone the next. So you can't really tell you can find this movie on such and such or this TV show here.
However, there is a way. Usually, if there's a movie that I want to find to watch, I just Google it and type in where can I watch, name of the title, and it will pop up saying Tubo, Vudu, Netflix, Hulu, YouTube. YouTube shows free movies or rent movies. So,
Yeah, I think wherecanIwatch.it does it too. It gives you an idea of how to find these things. If you own a Roku or a Google Chromecast or an Amazon thing, they have search functions where you can look and it'll show you which channels. Especially, I know Roku does this. They'll actually have a list of all the streaming services that offer that movie or TV show, if there are any. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit harder this week on this first episode of Back Rack Video. And how many times are we going to call it Geeking Out before the show's over, Chris?
we are not.
We'll see. This week we actually have a theme. I think some episodes will have themes. Some weeks we'll have departments where we'll have recurring segments. This week we have a theme. This is my brilliant idea. There's a show out there called Mystery Science Theater 3000. Okay, and its sister show Riff Tracks, which is Mike Nelson and Bill Corbett and I'm so sorry I can't remember the other one's name. Those three guys from the last half of the Mystery Science Theater original run wound up starting Riff Tracks, where they would do audio commentary over old shows and movies. But either way, they do what they call riffing. They're making fun of what they're seeing on screen. They're making fun of the dialogue. They're making up new dialogue for people doing things on the screen. They're just generally having fun, supposedly. Just riffing, just goofing on it. And most of the films in the Mystery Science Theater catalog, and there are well north of 220 now. I think it's up to actually over 230 movies they've done now for Mystery Science Theater, counting the new stuff they've done this season, which I'll explain in a minute. But they have, most of them are absolute stinkers. They are horrid. Anybody who's ever watched Mystery Science Theater 3000, when I say mountain climbing the movie, knows exactly which one I'm talking about. He doesn't, because he's not into MST3K as much as I am. It's Lost
I
Continent.
dabbled.
It's Lost Continent. Seeing the Joker and Beaver Cleaver's dad trying to climb a mountain. So anyway, what I've done is I've picked 5 movies for Mystery Science Theater 3000 that they've riffed over the last, gee whiz, it's close to 30 years now. I've picked 5 films that you should consider watching unriffed. So in other words, don't seek out the Mystery Science Theater versions, although you can find them if you want to watch them. I'm saying you should watch these films without the jokes and the riffs and anybody talking over it. See the film by itself, and I'll explain why on each one as we go over them. So, you ready for this, Chris?
I'm ready.
I actually have a list of 5, and the beloved wife, whose name will not be mentioned here and will not show up on camera, but is on the other side of the wall behind us, she actually came up with 5 of her own because she loves Mystery Science Theater, and she actually agrees with most of my list, but she had some suggestions of her own. But we'll go over mine first. And in no particular order, well, actually there is a particular order. We're going by broadcast date is the way I'm doing this. Episode 407. In other words, this is the 7th episode of Season 4 of Mystery Science Theater 3000. Episode 407 was The Killer Shrews. Now, The Killer Shrews, for those who don't know, is an old campy 1950s black and white, quote, horror movie about a group of mutated, oversized shrews that overrun an island where a scientist lives with his wife and his daughter and his scientific lab partner and Festus from Gunsmoke for some reason. And that's when Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane, in one of his first roles, shows up on a boat with a poor brother man who's trying to help him keep the boat afloat. They get onto the island. They don't realize there's a bunch of dogs dressed as killer shrews. There's a bunch of killer shrews running around. And as the movie progresses, it gets a little more ridiculous. This is one of the first movies that codified the idea the black guy dies first. So Brother Man is the first victim of these guys,
Aww.
at least on screen. Although, as Mystery Science Theater would point out, they're licking him to death. Because, again, these are dogs in shaggy coats. So they're made up to look like shrews. But anyway, or what passes for. Why do I say watch this unriffed? Have you ever had, like, a kid or a teenager or a young adult or somebody who is just so sincere in what they're doing? They've painted something. They've written a story. They've made a comic book. They've made a movie. They've recorded 200 podcasts. But they are, and you can look at it, and on the surface, it's like, oh my God, what did you do? But they're so sincere about it that you actually give it a chance, and you realize, yeah, they're not very good at it, because, let's face it, the Killer Shrews not going to win any Academy Awards, or even any Razzies for that matter, because it's not that bad. You can tell that this is like community theater level filmmaking, but they are trying so hard to tell what the story they want to tell that you actually start rooting for them and you start forgiving the little glitches that you see here and there, like the dog licking the black guy to death, or the I'm just going to go ahead and spoil the ending. The tanks they try to escape in. And it ain't Sherman tanks. But you wind up forgiving them because they're trying so hard to tell a good story. You're actually pulling for them by the end. And so
Well,
when you're watching it on Mystery Science Theater, they're having fun with it, but you can actually tell they kind of respect them a little bit just because they are trying so hard with the limited resources they had. He's going to get a little upset with me, but I swear, if we were to make a movie, it would probably be a Killer Shrews style movie. Word of advice though, stick with the black and white original. Yes, it's in black and white. Stick with the original. Stay away from the sequels until you've seen the original about 15, 20 times,
wait,
and then you'll be in on the joke.
wait, there's sequels?
There are sequels that they made back in the after Mystery Science Theater. Hold on, after Mystery Science Theater did this back in 1993, it had this echo chamber effect. People became familiar with the movie. They wanted to see the movie UNRIFFED, and people actually started watching the movie. The movie made a lot more money in the 90s than it ever did when it in its theatrical release and all the time leading up to Mystery Science Theater showing it. So they did a sequel, and yes, James Best was in it. I think John Schneider was in it from Dukes of Hazzard and a bunch of others, and it's just goofy. There's been 2 sequels. We saw the first sequel. We kind of gave up on the second one because it kind of had that touch of Sharknado to it.
Oh,
It was like deliberately cheesy, which kind of ruins the effect. So that's number 1, The Killer Shrew. The second one actually goes in a different direction, and this is episode 414. So we're still in season 4 of Mystery Science Theater. This is episode 14. It's called Tormented. Or as the beloved likes to say, Tormented. Tormented is a film by a guy named Bert I. Gordon, which is infamous to Mystery Science Theater fans because Bert I. Gordon, his initials spell Bert I. Gordon?
I am not going there.
B-I-G. He spells big. So he did The Amazing Colossal Man. He did Valley of the Giants. The Doll People. Anything that involved forced perspective where things look huge and things look small, Bert I. Gordon did a film of it. This is a film where he did not do that. Tormented is actually a ghost story. It's about a guy with a fiance who's basically a shrew, a girlfriend, and she's just riding on him to marry her, and he doesn't. He's fallen in love with this other woman. He's going to marry her, and she's been his side piece all this time. And she's like, "Will you marry me?" And he's like, "No, no, no." Finally, he pushes her. Well, he doesn't really push her off of a lighthouse. She starts falling off of a lighthouse and is begging for him to save her. And that's when he realizes, if I don't save her, she falls, she dies. I don't have to deal with her anymore. I can go marry the lady I do want to marry. She slips off, she dies, she falls in the water, dies on the rocks. They don't recover the body. The rest of the movie is the shrew girlfriend haunting this guy for not saving her. And it sounds, on the surface, me describing it sounds ridiculous, but if you watch the movie UNRIFFED, go ahead. What are you going to say?
The shrews sound ridiculous. This actually sounds really good.
The plot, the setup sounds convoluted, but the execution, this is probably the best film Bert Gordon made. And especially, there's a twist. A little 7-year-old girl finds out what he's done. Not for killing his old girlfriend, for killing his blackmailer. It makes sense if you watch the film. So now he's got to decide, am I going to kill a 7-year-old girl to protect my secret? And all of this comes. Now, it does suffer from last 2-minute-itis. Okay, this does suffer from the 2-minute warning that all of Hollywood had leading up into the 60s, where you had just problem, over till the last 2 minutes of the movie, then all of a sudden, everything's resolved. This is like that. It does have a sudden resolution. But the film is actually pretty well written. It's pretty well directed. It's pretty well acted. And this little girl, you actually The first time the beloved and I actually saw this film, we were actually a little worried about what's going to happen to the girl because we had never seen the movie before. This is absolutely one of the best movies that Mystery Science Theater riffed, and the cast actually said afterwards, we actually liked the movie. It was kind of hard writing jokes on it because we actually liked it. So,
Huh.
so there's your second one.
It sounds really good, honestly.
So, so that's my second one. Third one comes from season 5. It's episode 507. It's called "I Accuse My Parents." Okay. Now,
Oh boy.
hold
Here
on.
we go.
Remember Ed Wood?
Yes.
Okay, Ed Wood, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Ed Wood, Leonard Glenda.
Yeah.
Ed Wood, I Accuse My Parents. Hold on a minute. Stop. Take everything you know about Ed Wood, put it off to the side. I Accuse My Parents is shot in the same kind of genre, but it's about a case of child neglect. You've got this high school senior, this boy, and his mom's never paid any attention, his dad's never paid any attention. He gets involved in racketeering because for some reason racketeering was big in high schools back in the 50s. I don't know where this came from. But he gets involved in racketeering. He gets involved in drug running. He gets involved in money laundering. He gets involved in all these other things. He's finally caught, brought to justice, brought before the
You told me about this movie.
the judge, and anyway, yeah, I think I actually did tell you about this movie, but it's actually a really neat idea, and it's told well. Yes, it can be a little over the top because, it is a little campy, but the campy is reduced enough to not get in the way of the story. I Accuse My Parents is worth a check out. You should be able to find that one. You might have to hunt for that one. That one's going to be a little bit harder to find. YouTube would actually be a good place to probably start with that one. But again, skip the riff version. You want the regular one. Okay, here's the big one that the Beloved wanted. And the Beloved wanted the Killer Shrews and this one. This is episode 811, Parts, the Clonus Horror. Have you ever heard of this one?
No.
This one has Peter Graves back in his pre-biography days. And basically, the CIA keeps a clone farm somewhere off the coast of the United States. And this clone farm is where they clone famous, rich, and important and powerful people. So if they have a medical problem, then they have a place where they can get spare parts.
The Island.
Basically, but this is a lot cheesier. We actually had to look this up. I actually had to do a little IMDb research to figure this out because the Beloved thought the lead on this looks familiar, and Mystery Science Theater just goes to town on this, and boy, the film deserves it. The riffers go to town on it. The guy with the black curly hair in this is actually from the TV show Emergency. He looks familiar if you see him, but he doesn't have the mustache. On Emergency, he's one of the EMTs that's got a thick mustache. He's got the dark curly hair. This is one of his few theatrical films that he's released. Okay, it's actually, like I said, it's a neat idea. It's not really well executed. This is not quite TV movie of the week because back in the 70s they did a lot of the TV movies of the week where it'd be like Day of the Animals, I think you were talking about one time, and a bunch of other frogs and all these other things. This is kind of, it may actually have been a TV movie. I don't know. I think it actually came out theatrically though. It's silly. It's goofy. You will roll your eyes if you watch this on Rift. And like I said, in my opinion, the funniest episode of Mystery Science Theater of all time is Parts of the Clonus Horror, especially the end when they take care of Grandma and Grandpa. Enough said. Those of you who've seen it know exactly what I'm talking about. I always laugh my butt off every time, and the wife looks at me like, what is wrong with you? Either way, Parts of the Clonus Horror. Check that one out. Now, the fifth one I'm going to mention is actually from the newer seasons, the one with Jonah. It's episode 1204, The Daytime Ended. I don't know if you remember this one or not. I'm pretty sure you've seen it.
I have
You
heard
may have
that.
seen it once. The Daytime Ended is, again, Mystery Science Theater has this tendency to pick movies that are not very well executed, like Parts the Clonus Horror, like The Killer Shrews, like, altogether now, Manos, The Hands of Fate. But but these films can sometimes they get a fascinating little germ of an idea and they just run with it, and just because technically they don't know how to pull it off, and so they're taking risks and they're failing,
Right.
and they they're doing something different and it fails, and it's just fail, 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 fail. But the nugget at the center of the story is still so interesting that you want to give the movie a chance, and that's what The Daytime Ended did. Basically, you have a family at the end of time. All of time is collapsing around them. There are aliens everywhere. They're out in the desert. They're surrounded by aliens. They're surrounded by all kinds of threats and everything. And like I said, time is going haywire all around them. They don't execute it very well, but it's still such an interesting concept that I actually stick around to the end of the movie, because even though I've seen this movie like 2 or 3 times now, I still can't figure out how it ended. For the life of me, I don't know how it ended. And it doesn't matter if you see it or not. You probably won't figure out how it ended. But hey, that's part of what makes it interesting. And without the riffs getting in the way and reminding you, hey, this is kind of ridiculous, you're just kind of like a dog that doesn't understand what it's looking at. But it's kind of like, huh? Okay, so those are my 5. The Beloved wants some honorable mentions put in. Episode 314, Mighty Jack. I don't know if you've ever heard of this one or not, but this was a Japanese. This is one of those Japanese TV action movie type things where you have a crew of 5. Okay. Have you ever seen Voltron?
Yes.
Okay. And you got 5 people, right? Battle of the Planets, you got 5 people. You
Right.
always have these 5 people who come together. Mighty
Dressed
Morphin
up like-
Power
Yeah,
Rangers,
I
you
was
got
gonna
5
say,
people.
dressed up like Power Rangers.
Dressed up.
Usually. Yeah.
Mighty Jack is like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but in the 70s.
Yeah.
Okay. And the idea that they try to run somebody over with a forklift. So that one is just good, goofy fun. If you've been munching the funny brownies, then you'll want to check out Mighty Jack by itself. The magic brownies. She also recommends 310, which is Fugitive Alien. Oh my goodness! For the life of me, I've blanked on it because I know I've seen this film like 500 times. But it's kind of like Mighty Jack, but it's not. Mainly because they don't try to run anybody over with a forklift. But if you're into that kind of goofy anime-esque Japanese stuff, if you want anime without the cartoons and the flashing lights, Mighty Jack and Fugitive Alien will be 2 you want to watch. Episode 620 is Danger Death Ray.
Danger Death.
Danger Death Ray. In Mystery Science Theater, this is the one that made Cambot cry. But basically, it's a really crappy Italian ripoff of a James Bond film. And it's either this or Operation Kid Brother, and Operation Kid Brother just is so lousy it's not even worth the effort. But Danger Death Ray is just watching because it's just good, goofy fun. Episode 504 is Secret Agent Super Dragon. And I think the Beloved just put it in because she loved the music with it. And I think Danger Death Ray actually has Herbie Hancock's Watermelon Man in it for some insane reason. And I mean all over the film. And Secret Agent Super Dragon does kind of the same thing, but not quite as well in my opinion. But it's good.
The title alone is like, this sounds pretty good.
And the Beloved also recommends any of the Hercules movies, especially the one with Steve Reeves, because I think they did one that didn't have Steve Reeves in it. But any of the Hercules movies you can watch by itself, according to the Beloved wife. So, or at least she can watch them by herself, because I ain't watching the other things. But anyway, I will give a brief brief honorable mention. That's what I'm trying to say. honorable mention because Mystery Science Theater just released a new episode this past Friday. We're recording this on September 4th, 2022. So back on the 2nd, they released as part of their current season in 2022, The Million Eyes of Sumeru. Okay? Imagine a Fu Manchu film without the stereotypical, the Oriental, or the guy, but with feminist, over the line, overblown harpy. The Million Eyes of Sumeru, and it's got Frankie Avalon in it, in a supporting role.
Oh no!
So, boy, the cheese it's just like, just make sure you bring some Ritz crackers along if you're going to watch that film, because boy is it cheesy. And the hilarious part is the villains kick Sumeru, the villainess, and at the heart of all of this, just racks up such a huge body count in the first 5 minutes of this film, including probably the best explosion since Parts the Clonus Horror. If you have not seen it, go find the Mystery Science Theater 3000 app and watch it. Or go to YouTube and see if you can find the old KTMA episode where they did The Million Eyes of Sumeru back in 1988. That's where everything's weird and nobody seems the same. The film is goofy fun, and to be honest, I would take The Million Eyes of Sumeru over a twerking She-Hulk any day of the week.
Oh, let's not talk about that.
We did not mention that on Geeking
We're
Out
not
this
going
week,
to mention that.
and we're not going to
We're not
mention
going
it.
to.
So, thank you all for coming. Chris, any final thoughts?
I got two that I want to mention.
Oh, go right ahead.
But
Help
one of
yourself.
them I need your help because I don't know the title.
Oh, good luck.
All right,
Explain
there's this one. It's about a pterodactyl in, I'm going to say, New York, Chicago, the city, living in a bell tower, and it goes around just like killing people. And there's this guy that knows about it, and it's been like trying to feed it.
Don't familiar.
No. Oh man.
Don't recognize it. It could have been a Riff Tracks thing,
It was
which is kind of beyond the
such a
scope
good
of this.
movie
But
because the guy who's like been keeping it a secret is like the best villain because he has like this craziness about him, and it was so good. Oh, I can't. Okay, well,
if you ever figure it out, post it on to
I will-
the
I will-
Movie
I
Geek
will-
group and
I will
let them
try.
know what it's called.
not movie geek group.
Well, what is it called? Your Facebook group. What's it called? Movie Geek?
Oh, I thought you was calling this show. Never mind.
No.
All right, my other one that I do know the title of,
He
and
thinks.
if you have not watched this movie, oh, I beg you to watch this movie, Night of the Lepus.
That's true.
I love that movie so much.
I love the movie just because Dr. McCoy's in it, and I absolutely adore DeForest killing. But Night of the Lepus is the one where they took the killer rabbit idea from Monty Python and just went to town with it.
Oh, it is the best. There's something about. By the way, these rabbits are like radioactive or something, so they grow to like this huge, gigantic size, like bigger than a house. And there's something about having these rabbits jumping around on this fake town that they built of miniature houses, miniature cars, and these rabbits are like, jumping around, and everybody's like, ah! And then they electrocute all the rabbits and all that. It is such a good, fun movie. It is such a, oh man, I love
best triple feature of all time. If you've got a Friday night to kill and you just bored out of your skull, get yourself some Jack and Coke, sit down with some some popcorn or trail mix or something, sit down and watch, like you said, Night of the Lepus, The Killer Shrews, and Frogs. 3 of the best worst movies you've ever seen, because Frogs was the one that ticked me off because WLEX canned Me TV just before Svengoolie was going to show Frogs. Little bastards are getting friggin' scripts. You've earned my enmity forever. But Frogs with Ray Milland. And then you mentioned Day of the Animals, which is another kind of those goofy kind of movies.
Yeah, it was really horrible, but I appreciate what they were trying to do, because if you stop and think about it, it is kind of a good idea. But if you had money to throw it, it would actually might be succeedful. But again, these are movies that really doesn't need a big budget. It's just one of those things where you can actually sit down and just laugh about how horrible and quirky.
And the other thing too is these movies have something a lot of movies these days are missing. Okay, they don't have the CGI, they don't have the big budgets, they don't have the big name stars. They got a lot more heart than any of the movies out in the theaters these days.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see a movie now go to the big screen of like, oh, a guy turned himself into an ant, and now he's like a giant ant roaming through the city, and everybody's going like, and they always have like that caption shot of somebody going, ah, like this with a fake green screen computer generated monster bug behind them. It's like I would love to see that.
See, that's
It is.
hold on. If you want to impress me, okay, if you really want to impress me, stay away from the green screen. Don't even start me on CGI. Stay away from the green screen. Do practical effects.
That works.
Do practical effects. Because have you ever seen The Creeping Terror? I actually considered The Creeping Terror for this episode. The Creeping Terror, I joke you not, The Creeping Terror was supposed to be a horror movie from the 50s. They ran out of budget. Somebody took off with the monster costume. They found some carpet remnants, sewed them together, and had somebody carrying underneath the carpet remnants, carrying it around, and he was supposed to be an alien menace.
Oh yeah, I
remember that one.
Remember that one? Yeah.
That one has more heart than. Honestly, the only movies I've seen recently in theaters that had as much heart as The Creeping Terror did, Top Gun Maverick and Spider-Man No Way Home. More fun edition. So, well, have you got any?
Well, actually, if we think about it real hard enough, Nope is actually one of those.
Nope actually has some heart. Yeah,
movies,
they actually have some heart in that one. Yeah, I would give it that one. It's just it didn't make a bunch of money, so it made more Creeping Terror money than it made, it made Top Gun money. So if you've got nothing left, now next week you're on the hook. You get to come up with a. It doesn't. Now the thing is with Backrack Video, the format can change every way we want.
Yeah,
but we're going to be talking about old TV shows and old movies that we like.
Yeah, we're talking about stuff that nobody. It's either not on streaming service or it's not being talked about, that many people have forgotten. Like these movies actually exist, or maybe not even know that they exist.
The best place to find these movies, honestly, are like the $5 dump bins at Walmart.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this whole thing is just nostalgia of these films that do exist, because I watch a lot of people's reaction on movies that has been made back in the 90s or 80s, and they always sit there and be like, man, the special effects back then are actually really impressive or something like that. And it's like, that's where it all started. Stop bringing that up. They do this every time.
That's because they're trying to sound intelligent. But that's
it's like
that's just it. And professional wrestling is going through a dark age right now because the fans are too smart for their own good. Okay? Stop analyzing and critiquing the things you're watching. Okay? Yes, by all means, you can do that. But don't watch everything that way. Watch some things just for the sheer enjoyment of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Fast Furious movies, I know that they're like went way overboard, but they're summer popcorn fun. You can sit there and all logic goes out the window, and you can just sit there and be like, that's pretty stupid, but cool.
I remember when Fast and Furious, the first one came out, I saw it, and you know what I thought?
Well,
Smokey and the Bandit.
No,
It was a
I
Hal
can see
Needham
that.
car chase film, is what it was. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's done well. Or done badly enough that you feel sorry and get a little empathy for them, which is what we had on this one show. Don't worry, not every movie we're going to do on Backrack Video is going to be a stinker like these. Some will actually be pretty good.
Actually, technically, are they actually really stinkers?
Well, the ones I talk about I don't think are, but... future episodes we got coming up. I'm working on one. It's the 5 episodes of Adam 12 you should try to see.
Oh,
That's what my next one will be. I got one name for you, Charlie. And anybody who's watched Adam 12 religiously on MeTV knows Charlie will break your heart. And I'll have 4 others. So it's a quick spoiler. But so if you've got nothing left here from the back rack of the video store, Chris.
No, that's about it. Thank you for watching this new episode or listening to this new episode. However it's going to turn out.
However you get it.
You know.
You'll get it.
Yeah.
So for Chris, I'm Spike. We'll see you next time here on the back racks. Bye, y'all.
See ya. Peace.